I'm sorry, continuing. Uh, I was going over some of the literature, and there was literature also did. There's quite a few case studies, and as I said in the literature, as you probably didn't get the literature gap is there is a literature gap that most of the studies that many of them talk about aggression, but they do not talk about the antecedents, and that is what causes aggression. And most don't go into any study of it. And they certainly do not. They don't take a good look at territorial aggression. My hypothesis is that high density living environments contribute to territorial aggression. Okay, and I talked about the CBART questionnaire, and there's also going to be a survey, and that we're going to use to make sure that we have the participants who fit the study, and because we certainly want to use a healthy adult dogs, and we want to use dogs that can handle a little bit of stress. Um, and we're going to do in-home interviews and video the inside of the home and something called a behavior-based video summarization system. And uh, that is the instrument that we're going to use to capture the behavior. Um, and it's got a high precision score, a 95% precision score that it's capturing what we're looking for. We don't want a system that is picking up, let's say, the television instead of the dog. And the reason why we're using this is because uh, if if we had researchers in there too often, we would certainly not be capturing the behavior um, with the antecedents that we really need. We'd be capturing behavior that is caused by the presence of the researcher. And so I just wanted to talk a little bit about proving the validity of the instrumentation. So I already talked about uh, the uh, the video summarization system, but also the mini CBAR. Um, it's Chromebox coefficient alpha of 0.89 and a reliability score of 0.87. So I talked about the qualitative uh, data that we're collecting and how we're collecting it, and threats to validity, certainly bias, and it's certainly that the participants are not representative of the U.S. population as a whole, and we are inside somebody's home, and there's uh, y- anything could be going on inside a home and also outside a home. So we just cannot um, y- we can't prevent that. And those things will change behavior, and they do threaten validity of the study. Um, some of the some of the other threats to validity are that we could have difficult problems with that system, the behavioral summarization system. We it could First of all, there is still 8% not where it's non-precision, and we could break. We could have problems running it. There's quite a few things that are involved with that. Threats to external validity, like I said, are that I ju- I just did a really poor job of picking participants. Um, Perhaps the Washington, D.C. area is not a good representation of dogs in similar environments throughout the United States. It could also be that researchers, because of bias, because of their past experiences, choose the wrong dogs or identify, perhaps somebody we disagree about behavior. And so the way that we'll address those threats is for internal validity is a very important one is that there's going to be a habituation period. And that just means that the camera setup is going to be installed and just left in there for several days so that the dog gets used to it, so that we're not seeing behavior that's because a dog is responding to stress from something that they're not used to around them. And also that we are going to another important um, way that we're addressing internal validity, the threats that are involved in internal validity is by is by we have 3 people per study team, and that we're going to meet on a weekly basis to go over some of the video results. Um, and I'm also going to try to minimize the family interaction with the dog during the day because we're just taping during the day, and that way we're not family members aren't as likely to influence the dog's behavior. Um, and important, I think it's important with such a complicated softwares that we have an IT professional on each of the 3 research teams. So the real world applications, just that territorial aggression, real and all aggression of some kind is common, and but the implications are for aggression are big. There's just injury, death. I think I talked a little bit in the beginning about the amount of liability insurance that was paid 2 years ago, over $1 billion. So there's a lot of injuries. There are a lot of dog-related injuries. Um, you know, Dog-related injuries are a problem in our country. So for ethical considerations, the big one is confidentiality of participants and the neighborhood because we are filming in the house through the windows because we're trying to get a vantage point of the dog. So the video footage will be destroyed after a certain amount of time. Certainly, the questionnaire data and the survey data will be destroyed we um, as soon as we get the information we need. Um, Other ethical considerations are certainly welfare issues, dog welfare, and family welfare. And it's a huge thing. I'm sure it's a huge imposition to be filming in your home, even if you're not there. So families, again, there's going to be quite a bit of informed consent. People may not be able to handle it. Okay, and talked about the research team. We're going to make sure that we check in with all participants and that we look at the video footage every single day. Because if a dog starts showing signs of poor welfare, we are going to either try to remedy those or the dog may not, we may not want the dog to stay in the study because the most important thing is their welfare. And we'll do frequent check-ins with the family. I talked about all the that were there. Each team, and by team I mean each dog is going to be assigned to a behavior team. We've got a head investigator, and then we've got three-person teams. The teams include a behavior specialist, an investigator, and an IT specialist. Okay, so So the qualitative content in the study um, is we're going to we want to do an analysis of behavior, but we want to do an analysis of the antecedent, the behavior, and then there's also something called the consequence that we might catch up on as well. There may be that dogs stop the behavior because something happens, but mainly we're looking at the antecedent, what happened before the behavior and the behavior, and we're going to code those behaviors so that we can compare them. So independent variables are um, just about um, so the independent variables are the antecedents, just about everything: family, house, weather. The dependent variables are the behaviors and how often they're happening. So the dependent variables are all the behaviors that the dogs show on video, and we're going to um, have those drawn into an ethogram so that we know what 20 behaviors we're looking at, because we certainly have to we can't look at every behavior, but we need to look at the 20 most obvious, most important behaviors. Um, and so for statistic analysis, we are going to look for a correlation. And in this case, we're using Likert scales, so we're not using actual data that's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ordinal. We're looking at a range. So that's why we're using Spearman's. We need to calculate Spearman's correlation coefficient, obviously p-value, and then we want to look at a scatter plot of the variables, just to see what it looks like. And that's just an example of a scatter plot. It's not of this, it's just an example that shows what it might look like and that would be like a week with a bunch of with all the dogs' behaviors and all the different antecedents. So be all the dog participants that we're looking at during 1 week in their own houses. So the theory behind this, I've chosen the theory of scarcity, and that's because I think that scarcity, or in a lot of ways, in one way, you could describe it as supply and demand. That when resources become low, they become more valuable, and I think that is a theory that is does a good job explaining why dogs have territorial aggression. And I think it goes back to evolution, and that's how dogs stayed alive, by making sure that their resources were not taken from them. And now with our pampered dogs that have everything that they need, um, they still have that that behavior potential. And I think it gets triggered off with our dense areas. And I just wanted to say a quick thing was that I looked at a study by Shafir, and he talked about, that thinking is not good when or you believe you're in a state of low when you believe that you have low access to resources, or you don't have enough resources, you don't think well. And I think that explains also why dogs they react, they don't necessarily think about their behavior. So I talked about resources. I talked about, even though they're pampered, they may still feel the pressure to aggress territorially. So I just wanted to say a thank you and talk about this, how much I learned during this course. And a goodbye.